Hi, Daphna and Mike. Welcome to Collision at Home. I'm so excited to be here, especially to talk about this subject in such an important time that our world is experiencing right now. So I first want to start with each of you, and I want you to kind of talk to me about your company and how you make these alternative plastics. So Daphna, I'm going to start with you. I heard you got the idea from an orange.
Yeah, I got an idea from arguing with my kids about what they do with their plastic packaging they used to take to school. Plus, I got the inspiration from nature. So one day I just made a connection between those two. I understood that we've been using too much plastic. It was a few years ago, but even then, and my dream and actually my goal was to develop a package that is actually similar to organic materials, similar to organic waste, or similar to nature creation. So nature also packed an apple or an orange or banana. So just develop a package that is like nature creation.
Yeah. All right. So Mike, I'm excited. I know you're new to UBQ, but this idea of taking landfill material and turning it into thermoplastics. Tell me about that.
Yeah, at UBQ Materials, I think we've kind of taken on the ultimate recycling challenge, which is mixed plastics and the organics and some of the other fibers and things that go into a landfill in mixed waste. We've developed a technology to take that entire kind of composite of waste materials and transform it into a useful material system that can be substituted for thermoplastic composites. So, you know, in addition to the plastic streams, we're trying to take the entire waste stream that's ending up in landfill and turning that into a useful thermoplastic composite.
Yeah. So the big question right now is coronavirus. And, you know, is this going to help the movement of what you guys are trying to do, or is it going to hurt the movement? I mean, as we've all seen, oil prices have plunged, and a lot of companies are going back to their old ways and using coronavirus as an excuse. So Mike, I'm going to start with you because, you know, you have the big corporate resume, CEO of Owen Corning for a while. Like, talk to me about, in the eyes of big corporations, what coronavirus means.
Yeah, Jade, I mean, before joining UBQ, I ran a large publicly traded US company called Owens Corning. I think the commitment inside corporate America, at least inside US corporate America, to sustainability is real. I think it's coming from the executive suite. I think you've got a group of leaders today in corporate America who really do believe that those companies have a responsibility to make progress against CO2 buildup in the atmosphere and against some of the waste streams. So I would say I'm a bit of an optimist by nature. I think near term we'll feel economic stress. I think the long-term commitment to becoming more sustainable is going to be there. And my hope is what comes out of coronavirus is a belief among, you know, the citizenry that we can band together as a team and solve big problems. And obviously, in the near term, we're facing a problem that's quite urgent and quite emergent. The problem of climate change is a decade or 2 decade or 3 decade problem, but it requires action today. So I hope that coming from this, we both gain confidence in our ability to solve big problems and a sense of urgency about getting started.
Daphna, what are your thoughts?
First of all, I fully agree with Mike. And second, I think we learned a few things on why the coronavirus crisis just happened. It's actually an earthquake for everyone. But what we saw is that when we needed to change behaviors, we immediately did that. I mean, it wasn't anymore barrier. There weren't any barriers, etc. We just did it as humanity. And I think that's, we have to adopt that when we think about the next generations of this world. The second thing I think is that we really understood the connection between our health and the world's health. I mean, what if we keep the world as healthy and as natural as meant to be, we will benefit from it immediately, as humans, as nature, as our lives, etc. So I think those 2 points are very important to the future of sustainability while keeping our health and the world, or the other way around, the world and the health, and our health.
Yeah. Mike, what's the big hang up? I mean, is it the cost of these alternative plastics for companies? Why, if this seems like a no-brainer for any major corporation, to look into these alternatives, use them. We've seen over the years that companies like to, press releases that they're trying to change to draw consumers in, but as a consumer, I still see the same type of materials. Is it the cost? What is it?
Well, I think you're asking a very good question, which is, in the macro sense, it is a no-brainer. Obviously, we're going to need to change the way we use landfills. We're going to need to find a way to take the materials that are going in the landfill and make something useful out of them. In a macro level, I think everyone would agree on that and say, let's get going. I think any time you introduce a new material, there's always the competition, which is the status quo. And if you're accustomed to running manufacturing operations that are efficient and they're lean and they're working very well on the material system you have, when you bring in a new material system, it's going to have disruption, it's going to have development costs, it's going to have productivity loss. We think we can work our way through that. We think that's a responsibility of UBQ Materials to be good enough and be good enough in our technologies that we can convince our customers that they want to adopt our material system and put it into their products. I would also say, though, that it would be helpful from a regulatory point of view if the cost of waste went up. So, in some parts, particularly in the US, it's very, very inexpensive to put material into a landfill. Certainly in most of the world, it's very inexpensive to emit CO2. I think if we move to a world where there's carbon tax or some cost associated with the emission of CO2, where there's higher dumping fees to go into landfills, where we start recognizing the true cost of waste to society, that will give an impetus to make materials like UBQ that much more cost competitive and that much more ubiquitous.
Yeah. Daphna, so I read something that the plastic groups right now are seeking $1 billion for recycling amid COVID. And, you said something to me when we talked before about, people think recycling works. Explain to me why it doesn't work.
First of all, look at the numbers. The World Economic Forum just published in the beginning of 2018 a report that shows that actually less than 9% worldwide is being recycled from the plastic we use. Okay, so obviously those are the numbers. In the US, less than 4% of the plastic that we use for packaging is being recycled. So it's a system that we have been working on for years and years and years now, and those are the rates that the world has achieved. So obviously that doesn't work now. Recycling means recycling from one product to the other product and reusing again and again and again. It's very hard to recycle and get the same properties. The technology is not really there. Part of the technology is that there are packages that can be recycled, and let's recycle them. Let's first use less plastic. That's for sure. Then whatever can be recycled, let's recycle. But there's a lot that cannot be recycled, and let's open our eyes and understand that we need to change materials. We cannot continue using the same materials. Look, we use plastic. We recycle it maybe once, at the best case. Maybe we reuse it again as something. Eventually, it will stay in this world as microplastics. That's the end of that's how it's going to look. When you switch materials, for example, to compostable materials, eventually the materials that we use for packaging can turn into soil. So instead of making a damage in the world, it will actually benefit the soil, etc. So I think that eventually the solution is in looking at the big problem and changing materials, changing the source of the problem, which is the plastic that lasts forever.
Yeah. Bless you, Mike. So Mike,
Thank you.
Talk to me about the future. What's your game plan? Like how are you gonna, I know you guys have a big deal with McDonald's in South America. How do we grow this? What's your plan for the year ahead?
Well, we're doing a lot of work, obviously, on commercialization. So we're talking to a lot of different potential users of the product, compounders, molders, and also branded consumer products companies like McDonald's, or we've also announced some cooperation with Daimler in Germany. So there are people, obviously, who are very progressive and interested in using a product like UBQ to advance their branding in terms of their sustainability message. We'd like to get into production in the US sometime in the near future. So Obviously, with the uncertainty in the economy right now, we're kind of working our way through trying to get the commitments that would give us the volume to get into a big production facility in the US. Today, we're producing in Israel, and we're able to service the needs for prototyping and other things coming out of Israel. So we're in full market development mode and technology development. And we think a year from now, bigger and better things in terms of market development and bigger and better things in terms of the quality of our technology.
Daphna, how about you? Bring us up to speed, because I know you have a lot of partnerships. I read with Stella McCartney. Like, what's your plan to for the year ahead?
So first of all, our goal is to, we offer flexible packaging solutions. Those are all the soft packages that you can think of in the supermarket or in mailing, etc. Our plan is to provide solutions to all the packaging segments, mainly in the food industry and also in other industries like the fashion industry, to spread our solutions worldwide via collaboration with players in the market. That's what we have already started doing. We work, we have many important clients in Europe, like in the UK, in France, in the Netherlands, etc. We also have nice collaborations in the US and in Australia. So our goal is to speed up with spreading our solutions worldwide, offering our packaging solutions and taking the companies forward into a sustainable future.
All right, I only got 1 minute left, but what year do you think we will be plastic free, or a majority plastic free world? Is there is there a year, or how long do you think it will take to really get this movement at 80–90%? Mike?
Daphna, that'd be Jade, I'm sorry. That'd be very hard for me to speculate. I guess the time horizon I'm comfortable talking about is kind of the next 20 years. When you look at what was done in the Paris Accord and what's been done with the, IPCC, a lot of focus on what we can get done in the next 20 years. I think in the next 20 years, in terms of CO2 emissions and plastic to landfill and some of the topics we've been talking about, we can make real progress and we can hit the goals that were established by the IPCC. I think it's very important that we put tangible goals in front of us. And from the UBQ perspective, solving the methane problem in landfills and trying to reduce the load of landfills and the methane that's coming out of landfills is a critical part of getting to those CO2 emission goals.
Yeah. Daphna, do you want to end it with your thoughts on when you see this movement really taking full speed?
Yes, first of all, I think that governments have a unique or a very important role here, because they have to legislate towards the benefit of the world and encourage innovation, and encourage new materials, and encourage using other solutions than conventional plastic. Of course, there's a very strong lobby coming from the fuel companies, but governments really have to take leadership here. That's one thing. At TIPA, we're aiming to, as I said, to be very, very fast to spread our solutions in the world. The good thing that we see is that the pressure comes from the end consumers, and the end consumers and society is playing a very important role here in changing the future, because they don't want to see any more plastic spread around the world. So I think if governments take the steps and just end consumers and continue to shout their voices and say what they need, what they want to see in this world, I think that we'll see it faster than anticipated.
Yeah. All right. Daphna and Mike, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.